Welcome to the international webinar on municipal government leadership in response to crisis, and particularly COVID. Today, we have Jennifer Musisi, just a woman that I adore, a woman that I admire very much, just an incredible, inspirational leader. Jennifer is a Bloomberg City Leader in Residence at the Harvard Kennedy School. And prior to that, she was the executive director of the Kampala Capital City Authority, where she had the role of transforming Kampala. So let me ask you this, Jennifer. When you were the executive director, you were the first executive director for a newly established organization that had a lot of problems that it was set up to solve. How did you manage to take over the leadership and also transform Kampala to this beautiful city that it is?
Thank you very much, Kim. One of the first things that I had in mind was the need for us to turn around what was once a beautiful city but was now dilapidated in a lot of ways. Service delivery was very poor, infrastructure was poor, and there was a lot of complaining from the residents of Kampala about the state of the city and the level of service delivery. So my assignment was to start the transformation of Kampala. And it wasn't easy in a lot of different ways because we had to begin with almost nothing. We had to begin with restructuring the organization. The law had created a new organization to run the city. So we had to start basically from scratch. We had a new corporate name. We had to develop the new corporate identity materials. We had to establish a brand that people could identify with. And the most important thing for me was to start by building a team that I could work with, a team that I could share the vision for Kampala with, and have each one of them grasp the major vision, the big vision, but also the aspects of the vision that each one of them was responsible for, and continue to work alongside them, motivate them, encourage them, give them the support they needed to bring that vision to reality. So getting that team in place then helped us build systems, because without systems, you can't really do much. The systems were archaic. Some of them did not exist. There was a lot of manual working. Everything was manual, paper, documents, which caused a lot of inefficiencies in different areas, as well as things like revenue leakage, because there was no efficient system to collect revenue. So we set up systems to assess, collect, and account for revenue, because we needed money to do the things that we needed to do, systems for human resource management, systems to be able to communicate efficiently and regularly with the residents of the city, systems that also helped us get feedback from the citizens on the different aspects of our work. And we also had to draw up a strategic plan to know where we wanted to get to, give it timeframes, and detail how we're going to get there. And so those were some of the basic things that we had to do. And of course, with that came communication and actions to get taxpayer compliance, to collect revenue, and other compliance like building regulation compliance, traffic regulation compliance, and a lot of other things. And also the systems that we had to develop to deliver services, public health services, education services, physical planning services, and all the other functions that the city had. Because running the city has so many different facets, and without streamlining those activities with good systems, you would not be very efficient. And after the first 1 or 2 years, we began to see significant results from those initial efforts and built from there.
Well, you talk a lot about the technical aspects, the processes and systems, and those are all very significant steps in transforming a city.
Mm-hmm.
But for you, it's not just the technical. You're not just a technically gifted person. Each time I go to Kampala, every time I mention your name, people's eyes would light up. It's like they have hope. They see how green things are. And then they talk about how much they miss you and how much they can't wait to welcome you home. Everybody from the moment I arrive, having the taxi drivers talk to me about you, to the hotel workers, to every time anyone who gets a chance to hear your name really talks about the star power that you have. And for me, one of my most gratifying experience was the pleasure of having you take the ILI Leadership and Management in International Development course. And I hope you will come back and teach in it. So not just the technical aspect, but let's just be honest, you really have star power that you see not just 1 in a million, but 1 in 10 million, Jennifer. And so we're all lucky to have you. So let me ask you a few things for your observations. As you know, the COVID crisis has shown a variety of responses from the federal government and local governments. Sometimes there's a consistency and other times there's conflict. So what do you see is the proper role of the federal government and the role of local governments? And what do you think has been done well? And also give us your observation on what you think has not been done well and how can this be improved?
Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you so much for your kind words. First of all, just to say that whatever I did was a lot to do with the team. I had an amazing team that did incredible things. A lot of my work was supporting them, and they would just go for it. And they did incredible things. So that's the importance of the team. But of course, my own passion for my country, my city, to give people reason to believe that things can change. Things can change in Uganda, things can change in Africa, and they can be changed by Africans and Ugandans. So that was a good thing to achieve. We didn't start with all the public acclaim and appreciation. There was a lot of confusion and people didn't understand what we're doing, but eventually as they saw the results of our work, that appreciation started coming, and I'm very humbled by what we're able to do. Both local governments and the central governments or federal governments, in the case of the United States and other countries, are very challenged by this pandemic. And I think for any system, any leader at this time, this may probably be the most challenging times of their lives, whether professionally or whether personal. These are very challenging times that touch on every aspect of our lives and the lives of population and the way the world runs. And we are yet to see the full impact of this. But zeroing in on the response of the local governments and the roles that they have vis-a-vis the role of the federal governments. The federal governments have been leading in the national policies, setting national policy and national guidance in terms of the responses they are going to have. They've been setting new policies or combining existing policies to address the challenges of the pandemic. They've been providing budgets, and unusually so. Sometimes they've had to adjust. In many instances, they've had to cut back, they've had to reallocate resources. I've seen Parliament sitting long hours to readjust budgets for countries to be able to provide funds to address the needs of the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic. The national governments have also been coordinating the responses of the local governments, of the international community that's supporting them, of the agencies and all these other players, including the communities in the different countries. So there's been a lot of work done there. And one of the big positives of the national level is to have a common platform of communication to citizens in terms of giving them information on the public health perspectives, but also information on prevention, information of the future, what can we do in the crisis, what are we going to do going forward. And of course, the national governments have in many instances been the ones imposing lockdowns in countries. People needed to see their leaders, and they still need to continue seeing their leaders at the national level, speaking to the needs of the population right now. The local governments, in their turn, have been the front-facing link between national governments and the population, because the decisions and actions of the local governments impact on the daily lives of the citizens in the cities. And as you know, Kim, over 50% of the world population right now lives in cities. And with the cities come challenges that escalate the pandemic, challenges of congestion where you can't have social distancing, challenges of poor urban housing, people crowding in places, challenges of lack of health care or lack of livelihoods. People live hand to mouth and they cannot sustain themselves in many of these, in this kind of situation. And all these people are congested in cities. So even to de-escalate the spread of COVID in cities has been a very, very big challenge because of the situation that comes with the huge populations in the cities. So that city leaders and city administrations are continuously looking at ways in which they can respond. It's like an evolving situation. Every day something is changing and they have to be able to try and keep pace with that. They are doing everything they can to lower the rate of infection. They are the ones that are providing a lot of the reliable information, vital information that the citizens need in a space where there's a lot of information that's not accurate. A lot of conspiracy theories, a lot of panic theories and panic reactions. So the national governments in many, many cities are actually providing vital information, both to government and to the citizens, as well as to the other actors during this time. And they are responding to the different impacts. They are trying to continue they're trying to ensure the continued health of their residents. They at the same time keep the vital city services going, like transport and communication, and simultaneously having to plan for the post-COVID, the recovery phase, because there's life after COVID. And now that we are beginning to emerge out of the crisis, the cities have to plan on how to get out of this crisis. How will the cities recover? So they have a massive, massive role to play in mitigation of the impacts of this pandemic at this time. And having been a leader of a big city, I can just imagine what city leaders are going through at this time. Major, major challenges. And I really must applaud them for the fantastic work that so many of them are doing to save lives and to just keep these cities running and providing the services that people need.
Mm-hmm. So give us your thoughts on what do you think has been done well or what has not been done well, and how could those things be improved?
Talking to mayors and other city leaders during this season, one of the things that we have constantly got in through the feedback is a lot of mayors and city leaders feel sidelined by national governments. Many of them feel they are running after the national governments in terms of response. Many feel they do not have the adequate support or resources that they need to respond. There's also been quite a bit of information breakdown, communication breakdown, where information is not being shared adequately to enable the most viable, the most sustainable responses. But there's also been a lot of duplication and conflict of roles between central governments and local governments. And this is mainly because for some governments, because the heads of state, the presidents, the prime ministers are taking the lead, many of them have seen this as a big political opportunity for them to reestablish themselves, for them to show their capabilities. Many countries were planning to vote this year or in the next 2 years. So the political leaders have taken this as a political opportunity and the result of that is maybe positive, but also not so positive in some ways. And the local governments, in some instances, are not responding well in those circumstances. So politics aside, I think a lot has been done with the two levels. We would have had probably many more deaths than we've had. We would have had unimaginable disaster in a lot of countries if these two levels were not working as hard as they can. So some of those things have been challenges, but then very understandable also, because none of us has the benefit of hindsight. None of us has been in a pandemic of this size or nature anywhere in our lives. So there is no precedent for anyone. Everybody is learning from scratch. Everybody is learning as we go. So it's understandable that the challenges are inevitable and a lot of adjustments and corrections are being made, and lives are being saved. Lives are being saved. Communication is going out. A lot of programs to prevent are being put in place, and also a lot of systems are being improved in that process, because COVID-19 has exposed the gaps in administration at all levels. And this is the time to begin to assess those gaps and see how to address them. So that's one positive thing that has happened, how to address them going forward. And agencies and governments adjusting budgets and adjusting their planning, adjusting their strategies to have a better response in the future, and even as we come out of this crisis. So it has some positives, but there is also a lot of learning points for everybody.
Mm. Jennifer, what do you think are the attributes of good leadership and management in normal times? And what are the attributes of good leadership and management in times of crisis, such as COVID?
Thank you, Kim. The attributes of good leadership are basically the same, whether in crisis or in normal times. Either you're a good leader or a bad leader, you don't change that much because of the situation. That's what I believe. For example, the ability of a good leader is seen in their ability to bring together strong, effective teams. Now, these strong, effective teams and the ability to bring a variety of skills, people that are diverse, sharing a vision and getting them to own it as a common vision, and being able to work with those people, lead them to each one bring out their best capabilities, their best effort, for each one of them to own the vision, own the strategies, and own the results, and eventually together as a team achieve the set goals of the organization or the team, including you as the leader. So good, effective teams are critical in any good management. The teams do all the work that makes the good leaders look good. They make you look good. And I used to tell my team that my work is to basically show them what to do, support them, and then go and collect their awards on their behalf. But they did all the hard work. That's how important they were. And the leader would then also constantly be able to set goals, adjust processes to enable everybody to achieve their goals. A good leader has to be decisive. You need to know where you're going. You need to know what needs to be done and do it. Where you are indecisive as a leader, everybody loses confidence. And sometimes we take risks as leaders, but taking a risk and dealing with the impact is better than doing nothing. So leaders have to be very decisive and communicate that decisiveness to the team. Of course, you make the decisions based on evidence and data and input from the different specialties that you need to consult, but you have to be able to make clear decisions that people can move by. And with that, good leaders need to be courageous. They need to be bold. You cannot, as a leader, keep apologizing for your presence, or keep apologizing for the decisions that you have to make. You make the decisions and take the consequences. You own the consequences, even if the consequences as a result of your team members not doing what they needed to do. As a leader, you take the consequences, but you also take the credit a lot of times. So you need to be courageous, you need to be bold. I know as a leader, in my different positions, there are times when we had life-threatening situations. And because I stood my ground as a leader and said, it doesn't matter what the level of threat is, we're going to still go ahead and do this, there was a farming up of everybody on the team. And everybody was able to be courageous because the leader was courageous and bold and communicate that boldness downstream. You have to be as charismatic, as passionate about the vision as possible. That's the fuel that drives you. That's the gas that keeps you and the team going. The passion, the enthusiasm for the goal that you've set, and the vision that you want to reach as a team. And where you're passionate, you'll see boundless amounts of energy, not just in yourself, but also in the team. And I have been in a lot of situations where staff are no longer sensitive to the work hours. They're not bound by calendars. They are bound and driven by the vision. People will stay in the offices and work late into the night. Many times I'll go to my office at 6 and find people already working, 6 a.m. in the morning, people working through lunch breaks and tea breaks in order to achieve a target that we had set for ourselves. And at the end of the day, we'll all share the celebration of having achieved our target. And that is passion. Without passion, everybody goes limp, everything goes dim. So passion, starting with the leader, is very critical. And again, with passion and charisma, the leader has to balance that with humility. The humility to know that you don't have all the answers. You're not always right. You make mistakes. You have bad judgment, poor judgment sometimes. and the ability to be able to admit it, not just to yourself or to your superiors, but also to your team. It's okay for a leader to say, I'm sorry. It's okay for a leader to apologize and take responsibility. And in doing that, the leader comes out strong. A leader is able to learn, but the teams are also able to identify with their leader and know that they are human, they have empathy, they are accommodating, but at the same time know that they have all the other qualities of strength and charisma and firmness and courage and all those other things that a good leader has. One of the other very, very critical things in leadership is integrity. Integrity, not just financial integrity, which is critical, but also integrity as a person, integrity to be able to stand by your word, no matter what. So that when a leader speaks, that's what you get. There are no two sides to the leader. They are as good as their word. Because integrity creates credibility, presents an honest person, an honest individual, and people want leaders they can trust. If you're not honest, if you're not credible, if you're not consistent as a leader, people don't trust you, starting with your team. And you also not have the confidence that you need to take the positions that you need. If you're going to apply, for example, penalties or get compliance, demand compliance, you should be able to demand compliance from the highest person in the community, the most powerful person in the community, to the lowest person in the community, so that people know that whether it's the law or regulations, they are applied equally. The application of policies and practices and all those things in organizations should be the same for the lowest person in the organization to the highest person in the organization, because each one of these people creates the success of the organization. The guy that used to take care of our meals in the office was as passionate as I was about my work. He was as passionate about the vision of the organization as I was. He felt part of the organization, and he did a fantastic job in every sense of the word. So that is consistency, that is maturity of leadership, and that is a good leader. That gives stability, not just to you and to your team, but to the organization as well. So those are just some of the aspects. There are a lot more others, but things like integrity, especially in societies where corruption is such a big limiting factor to growth and prosperity and service delivery, integrity is very, very important, because there are a lot of very highly qualified individuals, very illustrious in their achievements. But in many instances, you'll find very few good leaders, very few credible leaders who are also very highly skilled and qualified and competent to do the jobs that they need to do. So those are just some of the areas.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for proving my point about how you are the perfect person I wanted to talk about leadership and municipal government management. And thank you for your courage and your passion and your inspiration. You have taught us all how to be better leaders. So thank you for your time, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Kim, and I really appreciate your kindness.